Okay, we're on. We are on.
Ready? My name is Denise Wells. I'm the chair of the Seattle Civil Service Commission, and I'm calling this meeting to order at 2:01. We're holding this meeting in a hybrid in-person and online format. The public can attend in person or watch online. This meeting is being recorded. For commissioners, staff, and others participating in the meeting, I ask that one person speak at a time. If you are participating remotely, please ensure that you mute yourself while others are speaking. For our participants, when you speak, please state your name, and it's important that you only speak one person at a time. This is to ensure the record of proceedings is clear and understandable. The agenda is posted on the Civil Service Commission's website, and we will proceed according to the agenda once it's approved. I'm assuming we've all reviewed the agenda, and does anyone have any changes? If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda, today's agenda.
And I will second.
Okay, so the agenda has been approved, and then we're going to do introductions. I skipped that. I introduced myself. Go ahead, Ray.
Ray Sazer, Commissioner.
I'm sorry.
Introductions.
Really?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Steve Brown, Commissioner.
May I make a brief announcement about the technology?
Yes.
All right, my name's Andrea Sheely. I'm the executive director, and although we are broadcasting this meeting in a webinar and recording electronically, we are having some technical issues and will not have as much video recording as we normally do. But I want to confirm with Aaron Valla, who is on the line. Aaron, can you hear us?
He can.
Yes, I can.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Aaron.
No problem.
All right, we can proceed. Thank you, Chair Wells.
No problem. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Andrea Sheely. I'm the executive director.
Joe Levan, legal counsel for the commission.
Sarah Butler, operations and policy advisor.
Teresa Jacobs, executive assistant.
And I'm doing things a little out of order. Sorry, I'm going to go ahead and do the land acknowledgement. Even though I stated we're going to go according to the agenda. The land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Duwamish people. We honor the land itself and pay our respects with gratitude to the Duwamish people, both past and present. Let us take a moment to reflect on the history of this land, contributions of Duwamish people, and the importance of reconciliation and respect for Indigenous communities. This acknowledgement aligns with the Civil Service Commission's commitment to its guiding principles and values of integrity, equity, and accessibility for all.
Thank you.
And Teresa, is there any public comment?
There was none in writing or in person.
Great, thank you. And the next item on our agenda is the Public Records Act training with our presenter, Aaron Valla. Yes. Hi, Aaron.
Hello, and thank you for your time today, Commission. I really appreciate it and the opportunity to speak. So my name is Aaron Valla. I'm an assistant city attorney with the government affairs section of the city attorney's office. And today I'll be presenting a training on the Public Records Act. And this may be a refresher for some of you, but it's always a good idea to have this every so often, just to keep it in the front of our minds. So I'm going to be sharing my screen, and hopefully this works just fine. But let me know if you have any difficulties seeing what I'm doing, and if you do, then I will run through the training, and we'll make it work. So sorry. Okay, it's asking me to. All right. Are you able to see this? Can somebody confirm that?
Now we can, yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. All right. So again, today's training is on the Public Records Act, and it's intended as a training and a refresher. And what we're covering today is the state of the law and as it applies to your commission, and also what your responsibilities are as a commissioner, and how the process works here at the city of Seattle in order to comply with the Public Records Act. So at a very high level, that's what we're going to go through today, and I'm going to walk through both what the legal requirements are, are on the commission and the city at large, and then how we actually comply with those. So for reference, this is the Public Records Act is in the RCW at 4256. It is Washington State's transparency law. Similar, if you are familiar with the federal Freedom of Information Act, the Public Records Act applies to Washington State public agencies, including all of its constituent commissions. So here would be both the City of Seattle and your commission as a Civil Service Commission. Fall within the requirements of the Public Records Act. And it does apply to all public agencies throughout the state, except for the court system, which has its own rules around transparency. In terms of...
Aaron, it's on the title slide.
Okay. It should have moved over to the next slide, but let's see here.
Showing the slideshow on the left side and the slide in the middle.
Okay, let me try this. Is that
There you go.
So,
all right? Awesome. We are working through it today. Thank you guys for your patience. Well, I'll move forward on that way. So I did want to cover that a public record, when we're talking about a public record, is any writing containing information related to the conduct of government or the performance of any governmental or proprietary function that is prepared, owned, used, or retained by the agency. So what this is covering is any type of record. It doesn't have to be a writing. It can also be a video recording, an audio recording, text message, instant message, Teams message, AI prompt, really anything that could be defined as a record, including data in a database. Falls within the definition in the Public Records Act. Even though it was written back in the 1970s through and brought into law by a public initiative, it's written in such a way that the courts have interpreted it to incorporate record types that were not in existence at that time, but fully incorporates all of our modern technologies. So something to be aware of. And then the other parts are that really it's anything that is us conducting our work on behalf of the city. So that includes your work as a commissioner. That doesn't necessarily mean that all the work that you do outside of your commissioner role, or that it's not part of your work for the city. That's not a public record. That's outside, even if it may be on a similar topic. What this is really referring to as the work that you do for the city in the scope of your work as an employee. And the other part of the test is whether it's prepared. That's if we create it in the course of our work, if we own it have we hired somebody else to do the work for us, but we own the work, or do we retain it if we actually have it in our files, or have we used it in such a way that we've made a decision based on it? So have we reviewed something and made a decision within the scope of our work for the city based on that document? Any of those can help define something as a public record, and at which point, if requested from the member of the public, we would have an obligation to provide it under the Public Records Act. There is no limit as to the scope of public records requests outside of all of an agency's records, and it is a very broad law. So in which it does create very broad obligations on the parts of agencies in order to work to respond to requests. The takeaways that I'm hoping that you're able to take away from today's presentation as commissioners are that the records you create in the course of your work are public records subject to request under this law and to disclosure. So that includes notes, recordings, written or recorded communications that are in furtherance of your work, even if they're prepared on a personal device or on a personal account. So if that's within the scope of your role as a commissioner, those will still be public records, which we would have to then ask you to help us provide under the Public Records Act. The city is not required to search your personal devices or accounts, but if there are records on those devices, you are required to then provide us those records to produce in response to a valid request. Personal notes can be subject to disclosure, but you might not need to retain them beyond your business needs. So if you are taking notes to help, say, on top of what's going on during a particular meeting, but you don't actually need them after a meeting, you can dispose of those in accordance with the law. And again, use of a personal device or account will potentially bring the result in that phone number or email address being disclosed. There are protections that exist for that to the extent we have that information in your emergency contact or your employee or your volunteer file. Those might be your personal email address and phone number would be protected in that context. But if you're actually using it in the conduct of substantive city business, substantive commission business, then in that context, that information would be released.
Aaron, can
Yes,
I ask, slow down a little bit?
of course. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I do apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you for the heads up. So in terms of compliance, what we're talking about next is who does what. What does the Civil Service Commission's public disclosure officer do versus what is your role as a commissioner? So the public disclosure officer is going to actually receive public disclosure requests and acknowledge those requests within the statutorily permitted 5 business days. So what the Public Records Act says is that we have an obligation, agency has an obligation to acknowledge a request within 5 business days and begin its work to help respond to that request. The public disclosure officer will communicate with the requester and will clarify the request and handle the administrative part of responding to the request on the commission's behalf. The public disclosure officer will perform any searches or arranges for the search for responsive records, and will review and apply any applicable exemptions to those records. In fulfilling that role, the public disclosure officer may reach out to you as a commissioner to help identify, locate, or produce responsive records. This may be something where on the face of the request, it's not obvious what the requester is searching for. So the public disclosure officer may ask you as commissioner to help identify any records that fall within the scope of that request. And then again, we'll review, the public disclosure officer will review those search results for any records that are responsive to the request and apply any applicable exemptions as permitted by the Public Records Act. As commissioner, we ask that you be aware of potential public disclosure requests that come in outside of the city's public records portal. By which I mean, if someone reaches out to you in your role as a commissioner and is seeking records, please let your public disclosure officer know. It may be a public disclosure request, and we may have a legal obligation to respond through that process. So if you're not sure of whether somebody's just in passing asking for something, or if they're asking for a record under the Public Records Act, please do let your public disclosure officer know. Once a record has been requested, we have an obligation to preserve that record to respond to the request. So even if, I mentioned earlier, if you had notes that you could have disposed of once they had met their business need, once requested, we will need to hold on to those and use them to respond to the request. So it's very important that once a record is requested, we preserve it and use it to respond to the request. If you are asked to help respond to a request, please work to provide any relevant information that you might have about the topic of the request to your public disclosure officer to aid them in responding to the request. This might be, you can help, while we ask you not to censor what you're providing over to your public disclosure officer or hold back records. If you believe something might be exempt, you can flag that for your public disclosure officer and they will work to assert the exemption if needed, as appropriate. This might involve you searching your non-city devices or your non-city accounts if you are using that for city business. We recommend, to the extent possible, that you use city-owned systems for your commission work, but on occasion, records are sometimes found outside of city systems, and that's when this might become necessary. There are exemptions to the Public Records Act that can include the attorney-client privilege, which is going to cover communications that the commission has with your legal counsel that are outside of the public meeting. So if you are having confidential communications with your legal counsel for the purposes of seeking or receiving legal advice, those communications are privileged and not subject to disclosure. This is a good thing to flag for your public disclosure officer if you are aware that that is going to come up in the records that you are providing. Similarly, if the commission is involved in litigation, records that are developed in connection with that litigation or anticipated litigation would be covered by the work product privilege. It's not up to you to be experts in that area. Your public disclosure officer will work with legal counsel as needed to help assert those exemptions. But what you can do to help is to help flag that if you believe that might be an issue. There are also several protections under 4256 250 for employment-related information, including information about personal phones or personal accounts where they're held outside, where they're not being used for city business. It also covers test questions, scoring keys, and application materials for applicants. This may and certainly will fall under some of the work that this commission does. But it can also protect home phone numbers, personal email addresses, social security numbers, and similar information. I also want to flag that where ongoing policy discussions are happening, if those are not subject to your OPMA obligations, if there is ongoing, getting recommendations about policy to take or not to take, those may be covered by the deliberative process exemption. So again, if there's an ongoing policy decision making process that is going that's related to a particular request, please flag that for your public disclosure officer and work with them to help assert that exemption. One of the reasons why we take among the many reasons we take this so seriously is that there are consequences for noncompliance, both statutory penalties and non-legal implications. There is no personal liability under the Public Records Act. The Public Records Act applies to public agencies. So this is not something where, as a commissioner, you will be sued in your personal capacity. That being said, your actions can affect potential liability for the city. And if the city is sued in connection with the Public Records Act request, you may be asked to provide testimony or declarations as to your involvement in responding to a particular request. Where an agency is found to have violated the Public Records Act by denying an opportunity to inspect or review a record, or where it has not made a reasonable estimate of time in order to respond to a request, a court may assess a penalty in the amount of up to $100 per day per record, and it has a wide discretion as to what it considers a record or a reasonable time to respond. Additionally, if an agency is found to have violated the Public Records Act, it is responsible for the requester's attorney's fees and costs of litigation. This, of course, could be a large sum of money, and it's something we'd like to avoid, in addition to wanting to be transparent for the public. Noncompliance can also result in unfavorable media attention and breakdown in public trust and the people being served by our agency, and can tie up resources in a way that takes away from the commission's primary work. If you were busy providing us depositions and involved in discovery, that's taking away from the good work that you were doing as part of this commission. In addition to we want to be good public servants and fulfill our legal obligations. So again, our overall takeaways from today's training that I hope you can walk away with are that the records you prepare, own, use, or retain as a commissioner are public records subject to potential disclosure. That requests may come to you directly, and if they do, please provide them to your public disclosure officer as soon as possible to ensure a timely response and compliance with the Public Records Act. And your assistance may be needed in some limited cases to fully understand a request or to locate and provide responsive records. And that once a request for a record has been received, any records that are responsive to that request should be preserved and retained, even if they could have otherwise been disposed of prior to the request. In terms of if you have follow-on questions about the compliance process, I recommend that you work with your public disclosure officer. For legal questions, you can reach out directly through your legal counsel, or to directly to myself in the city attorney's office, or any of my colleagues. Or you can work through your public disclosure officer to help frame those questions. If it's related to a particular request that your commission is working on, that the department is working on to respond to, will likely involve the public disclosure officer to ensure consistency in the guidance that is received. If you do have any questions of a legal nature, please do have those outside of a public meeting so that we can preserve the privilege. If you have any technical questions for today, I'm here to help answer them in this setting. But I also want to just thank you for your time and for your service on behalf of the city. We do appreciate it, and you appreciate your time taking the time today to hear about the Public Records Act. I do apologize. I do speak a little fast, so I've tried to keep it a little bit more on the level, and then my voice was starting to fade there at the end. So thank you for your patience with that as well today.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Always appreciate you helping us out on this issue.
More than happy to help. Thank you for your time.
I just want to clarify that Teresa is the public disclosure officer for this department.
Teresa Jacobs is the public
Thank you, Aaron.
Officer.
Thank you. And Teresa's fantastic. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Okay, next on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes.
Yes.
Get the right one. Yeah, approval of the minutes. Yep. Was there a motion to, did everyone review the minutes? Are there any changes, questions?
I'll move to approve the minutes for March 16th, 2026.
And I will second that.
Okay, everyone in favor? Aye.
All right.
The minutes have been approved. Item number 7, update and discussion. Andrea?
Thank you. I'll even bring myself on the camera for the recording, or maybe I won't. Here I am. All right. Thank you all for being here in person. We're here in a different location, and we'll be here again next month. So I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get our tech issues clear for next week. This room is a little different. And we didn't have advance notice of that, but thank you for your patience, and we'll move forward. So our budget report, that's for the Civil Service Department, is on page 4. This is about a week old, but it does share our yearly adopted budget. Our carry forward I see is here. This is money that has not been spent out of a pot of money we've been carrying forward for a couple of years now related to defensive pandemic related lawsuits or other legal purposes. Then you'll see our revised budget a few lines later. We do have some encumbered funds for work that was contracted last year and was not able to be completed. That's a relatively small amount. You can see our spending publishing to the publishing date of this report. It's a little bit higher now today, and our remaining legal budget at this is 22. We were at 22.9% of our yearly spending at the time this was printed. So, that's a very high level piece of information, but we are right on target for the rest of our spending this year. If we don't come in under, we will come in under, but we'll be very close to what our expected spending was for 2026. And the good news is the economic forecast came out a couple of weeks ago. We're still waiting for information about what that means. We have not received asks from the mayor's office yet. And I won't be able to share those publicly with you because that is a deliberative and confidential process until the mayor's budget is published in September. I expect, it's not a good year. We're getting those same warnings, that we've gotten every year for the past few years. That there's less money, there's more money committed than there will be available to be spent, but we'll see what the mayor directs our department to do. In the meantime, we're being judicious about our spending. Any questions about the budget report?
Not really. Thank you.
Great. All right. For our departmental work, the reason we're here today in City Hall having our meeting instead of in our regular hearing room is that we are doing the fire captain's exam on our almost all of the space we have available on the 16th floor. So thank you for your patience with this alternate location. And we're doing our departmental work. We're coming to the end of exam administration season. We do have one fireboat exam in September, but that won't take us out of our regular space. That's on the water. And but the work of our department proceeds, and I won't tell you much. I'm gonna do a departmental overview here. We do it every year just to sort of talk about what our department looks like and what all of our roles are. So I won't go further into it unless there are questions at this time. All right, then I'll just jump right into 7B, case status report and appeal updates. That we find at the next page, the yellow page in your packet. You'll see a pleading in the Andre Franklin v. Seattle Parks and Recreation page. This is the order that you all approved, delegating that matter to the Office of Hearing Examiner. Followed by a matter that was filed, March 27th, 2026. So I don't know whether that appeal was filed before or after our last meeting, but around the same time. That's Chris LaCombra v. Seattle City Light. Mr. LaCombra is not an employee. And so he attempted, though, he filed an appeal related to his hiring process, in which he alleges there were discrepancies or irregularities. I reviewed that case for jurisdiction, and I did dismiss that case as he does not have standing as a non-employee to file either the administrative exhaustion requirement of the employee grievance process. He can't grieve, he's not an employee, and he cannot file an appeal because he does not have standing to do so. You'll find the documents related to that appeal on the following pages. However, since that time, Mr. LaCombra has filed a complaint of political patronage. We just received those documents today, I think. So we will be reviewing them and making a recommendation to you all on how to proceed. And you will get to review those materials and make a decision as well. All right. So those are all of the appeals that we currently have. May I answer any questions for you all?
I'm still when that is explained it, I do when.
I don't even know. Yeah, because we have a form when someone tells us they want to file it's on our website as well, but Sarah Butler sent a form to Nicola Condo to fill out, so I'm also interested in those out. Because it was
mentioned in his first.
Right.
There's nothing really related to that.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
So
we will see. All right. May I proceed to the next item, Chair Wells?
yes, please.
All right, I'm gonna get this up on the screen, so give me a moment. I'm gonna do my best in any case. Let's see. Sure. Don't see that.
On that window you were. Sure.
You see it now? Oh, thank you, Joe. Yeah, okay.
There's your friend in Teams, and then so stuff.
Joe.
Yeah, try that.
Oh, look at that.
Oops.
I think I'm still sharing that.
Would you, from beginning?
Oh,
The very first block. Right, that's the beginning one.
you know, I can't even see what you see.
Oh, it's the very, the file, it's a little slices.
I know, that just doesn't show up on my screen. Let's try this. What fun.
You're off the.
I'm not sharing that.
That's,
Well, now we've made it more complicated than it needed to be, I think. Is this the thing that wasn't working for you the other day?
so when. Just go back to, don't share on team, just share. it.
You just share regularly.
For you.
All right, that's the best we're gonna get. All right, so every year, thank you for bearing with me on this one too. You are probably all three aware of all this information, but the members of the public who might want to watch this video or be in attendance may not be. And also feel free to interrupt me, but we like to just make sure we're all on the same page about what the Civ or Civil Service Department does and is. We house two departments, and I'll get into that. What your roles and duties are as commissioners, what our roles and duties are as your staff and support people. All right. Oh boy, let's see if I can, it's still on screen. Oh, good. All right, here's our roadmap. Civil service principles. Seattle is a civil service city. It is so important that to how we employ people in the city of Seattle that are not the original founders of the city of Seattle, but very early leaders of the city of Seattle put it in the city charter and the voters approved it, has been there ever since. The key civil service principles that are articulated in the city charter are merit and job-related hiring. We want qualified people who can do the tasks that need to be performed for the work. Related to that is that hiring not be based on political patronage, so not be due to politics, favoritism, people giving money to campaigns. They don't want employees to be leaned on, basically, to contribute to political campaigns in order to keep their jobs. And so we do have civil service. The Civil Service Commission and the Civil Service Department are independent. This allows our commissions to make independent decisions based on the merits of the case and then on those merit principles that are in our city charter. This protects our workers in the city of Seattle. It gives them a property interest once they have served a probationary period in their continued employment, subject to certain business conditions, that there be enough money and there be an ongoing need for their positions. We all know, because we've all been in public employment, that it's really good to be in public employment in the city of Seattle. And our charter and the voters want to keep it that way. The independence is also really important for serious discipline. You all are charged with reviewing serious disciplinary decisions, as well as the Public Safety Civil Service Commission. I've heard civil service, and I agree with this characterization, is civil service is like the base layer of the employment cake. That the employee and worker rights are augmented much of the time by collective bargaining agreements, but civil service is the foundation upon which those rights are built. I mentioned that civil service in the city of Seattle started a very long time ago. It started in 1896. I want to thank Sarah Butler for the research that's gone into this slide, which I hope you take the time to look at either now or at a later date. But the Civil Service Department used to be the personnel department for the city of Seattle. There was no separate SDHR personnel, and everything everything related to employment, including payroll, was performed by the Civil Service Commission. I've actually gone into the city archives, or not the city archives, but the archives at the Seattle Public Library, and found books where the Civil Service Commissioners were called, they were among the most hated men in Seattle. because they made tough decisions and they were not always popular. I think they were most hated men in Seattle by the politicians, because they were making those tough calls that politicians sometimes don't want them to make. But what we've seen over time is really, unfortunately, I think, in my view, the shrinking of civil service in Seattle. And what we remain here with is a small department, but we do really, really important work. In 1979, there was a reorganization. The personnel, throughout time, I think some duties were carved out of the Civil Service Commission and either placed in the departments, which many of them have internal HR units, but also a centralized personnel function, which is now SDHR. And in 1979, that's when we see a lot of the code change, the Seattle Municipal Code change, and the Public Safety Civil Service Commission separated out and created as its own separate entity. Prior to that, police and fire were in the civil service system as well. They are very related systems, but they are different. Public safety civil service is required by state law, as I expect you've heard me say before, and that's 4108 and 4112. The city adopted, in accordance with state law, its own public safety civil service code, which is a lot like the one that we still have today. They used to be two different departments: Civil Service Commission Department and Public Safety Civil Service Commission Department, both tiny. And in 2012, they were combined mostly for efficiency purposes, as they were also operating, I think, in the same space. It made some sense. Made a sense for, I'm sure, more reasons than that, under a single executive director. But the commissions remain separate and independent of each other and independent of the executive and other branches of government. They do share, of course, some administrative staff and an executive director. Today, we work hard to maintain the independence and the strength of the civil service systems in the city of Seattle. We serve as a resource to electeds, departments, employees, and members of the public who have questions. And we think we do a really good job. I hope you agree. In the city of Seattle, this is, of course, our organizational chart. And I share this slide a lot just to highlight the independence of the Civil Service Commission. It's an visual aid that I think helps me get this point across, which I hammer home more often than you think. Another visual aid to help illustrate, we really are a civil service city. This largest pie section represents employees in the civil service system. We don't have them here at our meetings besides Commissioner Caesar, but he was elected by a good number of people. And these are positions, this represents positions in the civil service. The gray section is the public safety civil service. As you can read, we do have what is that, like a 1/8 or a 1/10 of the chart are exempt positions, excluding non-temporary positions, which are not represented in this chart at all. And then we have the Seattle Public Library out on their own, which is organized differently and was not included in the Civil Service Commission system when they reformed as, are they a library district?
They're separate, so they share systems.
Yeah, they do share some systems. All right, all of this is familiar to you. The city charter and the personnel ordinance, SMC 4.04. 4.04 describes a lot of things, and one thing is the Civil Service Commission. But you are a neutral, independent board, essentially, that oversees the system of merit-based hiring and promotion for most classifications in the city of Seattle. Among your responsibilities are hearing and deciding appeals of serious discipline. The Civil Service Commission can also hear other kinds of appeals, and we've seen a few of those. They feel really one-off, but employees can bring their questions through the process, eventually to you if they want to persist and are unsatisfied by the earlier answers they receive, and have you all answer questions about them, of course, about whether it's in your jurisdiction, whether the city followed its own rules. So it's a really important role for employees, or it's a really important function that you serve for employees. We've talked a little bit today about your role in allegations of political patronage. So what happens when we get an allegation of political patronage is the person alleging the violation brings us details about the alleged violation. We will conduct an investigation. The kind of investigation, it might be a short, simple investigation, or depending if it's complex, it might be complex. And then we make a recommendation to you all about whether or not to hold a hearing. If you were hypothetically to find that political patronage occurred in violation of the law, I'm not sure what all of the available remedies would be, but we can certainly get more information about that, and our council will provide legal advice if needed. And I have a role I'm the executive director of the Civil Service Commission too. I'm not a commissioner, but I do have a spot here. And that's in the code, which is why it's listed here. So my legal obligations are to support you all, help administer the system, provide advice, and advising counsel to folks who have questions about the system and its processes. You already know this, but we do not administer any exams for positions in the civil service system anymore. The city stopped doing that about 30 years ago. But many cities still do have civil service exams and tests, and for entry level and promotional for a range of positions. Our city just decided to stop doing it. I won't go into all of the duties and legal obligations of the public safety civil service system because they are much the same, with the addition of we do develop, administer, maintain scores for all of the almost all of the ranks in the Seattle Police and Fire Departments, all of them below the command staff positions. And so, that's a very large body of work. We do have 7 staff people devoted to that work. And a good chunk of our budget is devoted to that work as well. All right, so the players in civil service are, of course, you all, the civil service commissioners. I'm the executive director, and we have commission counsel here. One of them with us here today, Joe Levan. Joe works for the law department, not for the civil service department. And we have our 3, this describes how you all got here, appointed by either the city council or the mayor, or elected by their peers in the civil service system. Oh, sorry. And I do serve as the executive director for both bodies. And the roles overlap mostly administratively, I would say. We don't have, of course, employees who are in both systems. And I am aware and keep abreast of any changes to the law related to either civil service system, and they have their own set of administrative rules, of course, which we follow, and the commission rule makes from time to time. At this point, I feel like I'm going over things I've already said, but you as commissioners have authority and the duty to hear disciplinary and other types of appeals within the civil service system. You oversee and make the rules and maintain the rules, which I think we're going to do a little bit more of this year, as well as political patronage. You have the ability under the law to make recommendations to the city council and the mayor about administration of the personnel system if you see fit to do so. And jointly with the Public Safety Civil Service Commission, you do supervise me and the person who's in my role, including do my performance evaluation, vote on appointment. You could remove me if you thought I was doing an inadequate job. Other supervisory responsibilities with regard to the executive director position. the Public Safety Civil Service Commissioners have the same duties, and part of their oversight in rulemaking, and the Public Safety Civil Service Commission is also overseeing that civil service exam function. And learning about it, understanding it as much as they need to, in order to perform their duties. The chair, we have a chair for each commission, as you know, elected by their peers on the commission. And their duties are mostly to help run meetings, to make sure that the work of the commission is accomplished. And the way they do that, as Chair Wells is doing very well, is presiding over the meetings, making rulings on parliamentary procedure if necessary, understanding, what they need to know about parliamentary procedure, which is definitely not intuitive. I had to learn it. It's kind of fun though, once you do. You're gonna get there eventually. It's gonna be fun. And I've written act as hiring authority and primary supervisor for the executive director. That is not in the law, but that's sort of how it's been since I've been in this role. It's a good, the chair is sort of a good touch point for me to have if I have questions or there's something I want to share. I'll usually go to the chair first. But certainly all commissioners, have the same role with regard to overseeing the executive director. So if there's especially if there's something you want to talk to me about, me or Joe are going to be probably the main ones you're going to raise it with. So always, I hope you both do, all three of you do, feel comfortable coming to me with any questions or concerns. I'll always make the time and space to talk about them with you. And the chair may sign correspondence on behalf of the commission. Another commissioner may do that as well if the chair is not available. There is information in our rules about how to, I can't remember the terminology, but sort of appoint a chair in the chair's absence or something like that. And if you were to become unavailable or be unable to perform your duties, it's not easy, but we can and have, found pro tem chairs for instance, one time, not pro tem chair, pro tem commissioner. For instance, one time, one of the commissioners on the PSCSE was a witness in a disciplinary hearing. And so he had to recuse himself because he was a witness. We were able to work with a former commissioner to return as a pro tem to help us have a 3-person panel to hear the disciplinary appeal. And our commissioners are usually, not all of them are available, but most of them had a good enough experience with us that they will come and help us out if we ask nicely and they're available. I am not going to go over this slide too much. This is executive director's duties. This is for your information, but I am basically the general manager, the appointing authority, and I wear a lot of hats. I'm the finance manager. I'm not the IT contact. That's Teresa. But between Sarah, Teresa, and I, we wear about 25 different hats here in this department. But these are just some of mine on this slide. And our staff, as I mentioned, a good number of them, 6 out of 10 of us, is that right? 7 out of 10 of us are really devoted to the exam function, which is incredibly complex, and they do an incredible job. But they pitch in and they do lots of other things too. And here are some examples. We're really all here to serve the employees, to serve the commission, and to serve departments. So anything that we need to do to make sure that those 3 things get done, we're doing them. Okay, and this is these are just our stakeholders. We operate in a universe, the City of Seattle universe, which you 3 know very well from different sort of vantage points. But we work with city departments, we work with new hires and current employees to tell them about their rights. We're talking with the labor negotiators, both for the City of Seattle, and we talk with the presidents and representatives from Protect 17 and SPOG and all of the city unions at one point or another. We of course work with the city attorney's office. We work with Joe, but if we have litigation, we might be working with another attorney, or you might be working with another attorney on that. Seattle Department of Human Resources are our really close partners. We get advice, we brainstorm, we have a lot of things that we work together on, like classification of public safety positions. And they often served as proctors for our exams because they don't work in the police and fire department, and they have the skill set, and they're good customer service. So we're really grateful to them. The Office of Hearing Examiner, you all have recent experience delegating a case to them, so we're really grateful, not just the law permits that, but that they are able and willing to do the work, and they do it very well. And the city council and the mayor, the courts aren't mentioned here, but they're another city department that we partner with. Basically, if there's a department in the city, we work with them at one point or the other. So our relationships are really important. They're one of the reasons we're able to get our work done, and we really value those partnerships. That's all I have for you, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank
Any
you.
questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to make the point that a lot of what Andrea talked about in the rules. So sure you're already fully familiar with the rules, but
I know.
do refer to them because they're pretty detailed
I just love
and
reading them again, actually.
they're thoughtful. They go back to this version to 2014. As Andrea said, there's always opportunities to improve them. So if you think of things, you see things in there, you wonder about, if you have any questions or think, is this the way things still work, or could we get it better? Always open to consider that.
Yeah.
And it is, I mentioned this to commission before, Steve, but it is interesting because the difference between the public safety civil service and civil service, because even though civil service, there's many more civil service employees than public safety civil service employees, the Public Safety Civil Service Commission generally has a higher workload because of the exams. And there's just more that goes into that, and people protest exams and raise challenges related to exams. So to that extent, it gives you a little more opportunity to again, kind of think about workload is as much. If you do have some ideas about how to make civil service better through the rules or otherwise, Andrea is very open to that, and we have some thoughts about that as well.
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
And we did some work, we had Sarah, got some feedback from the Office of Hearing Examiner, which when they hear a case in the stead of the CSE, they apply our rules as they should. And they've given us some feedback on our rules. So, we are committed to going through those suggestions and making some proposals, not just, of course, from the Office of Hearing Examiner, but what we've seen and what we can recommend. So I will get back to you by next month on a proposed timeline for looking at what we would think are the highest priority improvements to suggest to you all for the Civil Service Commission rules.
And those are going to be related primarily to hearings, because your rules are quite comprehensive, starting out with, as Andrew talked about, what the role of the commission is, the role of the chair and the presiding officer, that the policy work you do, the legislative work you do, and then there's the whole other part, which is much more detailed about hearings. So that other part only applies when there are hearings, and you don't have many hearings. And you, as Andrew mentioned, you do have the option, which you did at the last meeting, to delegate to the hearing examiner, because that's all they do is hearings. So they're very good at that. You don't have to delegate though. So going forward, as you become more familiar with your own processes, and as Andrea mentioned, those recommendations relate to hearings. So there's probably a really good opportunity to at least consider revising some of your rules related to hearings to streamline them based on the day-to-day experience of the hearing examiner.
Yeah, and I think that the last time they were revised was 2014.
Yeah.
So at least every decade, we should be taking a good look at those.
Mm.
I'm joking. It should be more frequently than every decade.
But I think that's part of it is a testament to that they are thoughtful rules. They're not You know,
That's true.
I've been working with, the
They, they've worked. So
yeah,
is it possible to get a printed out copy of the rules next month? when
You
we
got
get
it.
here?
Yes. We'll bring some copies.
and the other thing is, in my mind, it's interesting, because Andrea mentioned for public safety civil service, state law requires public safety civil service. And it has state law provisions that set out what public safety civil services has to do. And the city can have its own public safety civil service system, which it does. As long as, and it can deviate a bit from what's in state law, as long as it substantially accomplishes what is in state law. But for civil service, there's no requirement in state law for civil service. So the city has this long-standing, really honorable tradition of civil service. A lot of cities have gotten rid of civil service, so it's,
How about the other cities in Washington State? Tacoma, do they?
all the,
Some
yeah,
other cities in
all
the
the-
state?
Most of them do. The big ones, I think, have maintained it. Spokane has a really strong civil service system. Tacoma does. Everett does. For civilian types, I'm not sure about Bellingham. But I know that the larger cities have maintained it in one form or another. And I would say that Seattle actually, I mean, they made a policy decision to distribute the responsibility for merit-based hiring to departments. So it was a policy decision, and I cannot say whether that works better than a centralized civil service function or not. It's just different.
and then the other thing that's interesting is and apropos to today's earlier discussion about political patronage, because back in the old days, as Sarah has pointed out through her research, that was one of the main focuses for civil service. As you know, it's not just about merit, but it's about trying to prevent people from hiring their friends and family. And that's kind of, I think, dissipated somewhat through the years, but it still exists. It's still an important part of the rules and an important consideration about what another layer the city has, which is more robust than it was back then, is the Ethics and Elections Commission. So the city has very detailed rules of ethics. And those generally are looked to significantly instead of folks looking to civil service rules related to patronage, which also could fall under somewhat, is using your position in a way that could violate the ethics rules.
Wow.
So,
And we find that education is really the best guard against political patronage, because people don't want to do wrong, but they might, they don't know. And so we always reach out to new city council members, to the folks in the mayor's office, because it's not complicated, but you do need to know. So we've gotten in with all those people.
and with the people in HR here, otherwise the personnel professionals, if they see any kind of red flags as someone getting involved in a way they shouldn't get involved, that's probably why it doesn't come much to this commission, because it's already dealt with before it ever would get here.
Yeah.
Is that right?
In my experience, those recruiting pros are tough as nails. They make sure things go in an ethical, appropriate way.
Repetitive.
Yeah.
In your time here, has there been much in terms of political?
This is the first political patronage complaint we've received in my time. I don't know about you, Teresa. Do you remember other ones?
One,
Yeah.
many, many years ago.
So you're part of a long, important tradition.
Of being the most hated men in America, Seattle.
Oh, wait.
Well, yes. I mean, we can update it. Well, they hated people. They hated
I
people.
mean, didn't tell me that.
We appreciate,
Okay, next. We don't have any action items. We don't need an executive session, any old new business, financial statements. Is that Teresa going to do that?
Yes, thank you to all of the commissioners. You've returned your forms, so we have been or are 100% compliant for 25.
Yay.
Thank you.
Okay, we've reached the end of our agenda. Unless any commissioner has anything else for the good of the order, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I am making a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, our meeting is adjourned at 3:00 only.
Wow.
Wow. Wow, you guys are the